social media has had a huge impact on Michigan and on places to visit in Michigan.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another great episode of Mid Money, where we talk about all things personal finance in the state. Kevin, how's your week been?
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, couldn't be better. This is a relatively short week for us. But yeah, weather's been terrific. The sun's out. Summertime's just around the corner here in Michigan, so it's terrific. Yeah. How about yourself?
Going good. It's going good. A great past weekend. The kids are slowly starting to get engaged in more and more stuff. I signed our oldest up for dance in the fall, so that's exciting. But
cool.
It's kind of scary that she's turning 3 next month.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say it's funny, but it's interesting kind of looking back retroactively too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you can relate having some older kids, but the days are long, but the years are short.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this year in particular, right? It's already nearly June.
Yeah, halfway through the year.
Yeah.
Blink, just an eye, just like that.
Yeah, I mean, my oldest is going to turn 17 this summer and going into his junior year. So it's crazy because I look at, for instance, like, you pull your phone up and it's like, oh, this day 12 years ago or something, right?
Yeah,
or even,
sure.
I think there was one of like 15 years ago, and there was a photo of him with my wife, and it's just crazy to think of that little guy and growing into
Brings
what
back
he
a
is
lot of
now.
emotions probably, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so what are some fun things that you and the Scorestone family like to go do in the summertime?
So in general, I'd say the thing that we generally do is go up north. Right.
Okay.
We love to spend time in northern Michigan, whether that be in Traverse City. We usually spend a week. We rent a cottage at Glen Lake. Unfortunately, we're not doing it this summer because the boys have a camp the week that we generally do that. So hopefully I haven't lost my spot in line at the cottages that we usually stay
so
at.
popular up there.
It is. Yep. It's popular and it's expensive, right? I mean, it's wildly expensive. There was an 800 square foot cottage, maybe a quarter of a mile up the road from where we stayed, that was an absolute teardown. I mean, it was not a very nice place.
So it was going to be sold as is.
Oh, absolutely. And it was selling for $800,000. This would have been a couple summers ago, and it has been torn down and rebuilt now. It maybe has 25 or 50 feet of beachfront. But the views are amazing, right? I mean, you look across the lake, and there you see the Sleeping Bear Dunes.
Yeah, and
right?
on a beautiful day too, you can actually go see. It's kind of funny because it's probably a couple miles away. You can make out the people that are walking up the hill and almost look like ants from a super far distance.
Yeah, we get out you can see them, just with the naked eye, and you get out your binoculars and look, and it's interesting, right? Because I've been going up to northern Michigan, all my life, but probably more consistently since my teens.
Sure.
And I think I used to go to that area and you'd see no one. Right.
No one.
No one even really knew what the Sleeping Bear Dunes were 30 years ago, right? And now it's a completely different story.
Social media, man.
And as I recall correctly, social media is a big part of it, and just media in general. Because if I don't recall if it was ABC or Good Morning America.
Good Morning America. I think it was 2012.
Okay.
It named, I don't know if it was the Glen Lake area, Glen Arbor area, or the national, what do you call that? National
Lakeshore.
National Lakeshore.
Yep.
So if anyone can remember which, whether it's Good Morning America, ABC, so on and so forth, please send us in a little comment. But the most beautiful place in America.
Right. And I think ever since then,
popularity's been
exploded.
skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I vacation all the time up there too. Been doing it. Been going to northern Michigan at least for the last 20 or so years, whether it's more around the Asaba Lake area or more around the Leland, Michigan, Glen Lake area too. There's just been a huge skyrocket in popularity, but I think it's so much with media and especially with social media too, because in the past, I mean, how did people get their news? Really it was in a newspaper or was watching TV. And so with the popularity of being able to go share things online, whether it's a link to an Airbnb or something else like that, I mean, people are like, hey, why don't we go stay here?
Yeah.
Because before that, most of these smaller bread and breakfasts might not even have a website.
Yeah.
They just had a link.
Yeah.
And so before that, you're going to a hotel, but there are no hotels.
Sure. No, it's interesting you mention it because prior to social media, right? I take a lot of pictures. Photography has always been a passion of mine. And so I had gone up to the UP and I had taken some photos at Pictured Rocks and Tequamatum Falls and whatnot. And I've mentioned in prior episodes that I lived in Colorado. So went back to Denver at the time and shared some of these photos with my roommates who were from living in obviously Denver with me at that time, but they were from Texas and particularly Pictured Rocks. And they're like, that's in Michigan? Like, you have to be kidding me. That is absolutely gorgeous.
Stunning.
I mean, green water and the different shades within the rock and whatnot. But now when folks see, like, let's just use the Sleeping Bear Dunes, for example, because we've mentioned it a few times. Folks see that and it's absolutely gorgeous. They can't believe that there's a shoreline like that in Michigan, maybe in the U.S., right? Because it's just so unique and beautiful, and it's on fresh water. That's just not something that you see every day.
No hurricanes, no sharks.
Yeah.
A lot safer too.
Yep.
I shouldn't say that because I do know that, at least from a shark perspective, I know that's a lot more. I should make that thing. I shouldn't. I'll back that up a little bit. I'll back that up a little bit. But besides the point, maybe Tim Allen.
Oh, sure.
Is to be thankful, or Michigan should be thankful for Tim Allen with that Pure Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't think of a more iconic duo being able to go listen to his voice with the commercials and really highlighting all the beautiful things that are across our great state.
Should we be thankful or should we be unhappy because he's drawn all these outsiders into our state?
It's polarizing because in one sense and fashion, let's just go pretend that we were going to go sell a cottage on a lake up north. Now, that's, of course, going to get a little bit of a premium because, let's go pick on Glen Lake. It's a beautiful lake.
Sure.
And so maybe in the past, maybe that same cottage might have been $200,000 or $300,000, but the pool of buyers is a little more constricted to maybe people in Michigan. Maybe you might have like a transplant in Wisconsin or Indiana, but let's just go pick on Zillow. You go find a Zillow listing, and maybe you live in Tennessee,
right?
Maybe you live in Missouri, and you're like, hey, let's go check this cottage out. And so that's only increased the popularity.
Oh yeah. And I think it's not only restricted to the Midwest, and I know both of us have experienced this where there's a lot of California money in northern Michigan now.
So much.
There's a lot of money from places like Phoenix or Arizona, but it's really and there's international money up there now. I mean, quite frequently when we travel up there, I hear a lot of
I can see that.
people speaking internationally too. So yeah, I think it's that area has gone global.
Yeah, I think in the last 10 years since I started going, no, last 12 years, better make that correction, Rose, in case you're watching or listening. But since I've been going up north with my wife to the Leelanau Peninsula area, one trail that we love going to is the Empire Bluff Trail.
Oh, sure.
Which is Empire, Michigan, which eventually probably takes 20, 25 minutes to get to the actual part of the trail where it's absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. You're overlooking beautiful, beautiful sand dunes.
Yeah.
And I think when I first started going up with her in 2012 and 13, there might have been 6, maybe 8 cars in that parking lot that can maybe hold 12 cars.
Yep.
And I kid you not, Kevin, last summer there must have been at least 40 cars.
Yeah.
And it was not a peak popular time.
Sure.
Like, we're talking about like 8 or 9 in the morning. We're getting up, we're moving, we're going, we're hiking. It's skyrocketing in popularity, which, part of me makes me happy because people can see the great things that we have in the state of Michigan, but I go think about the local residents too.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's another place for me would be Good Harbor Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Which is in that area.
Super
When
popular.
I used to go up there in my teens, there was no one. I mean, it was all dirt roads and, you'd go back there and oftentimes you'd be the only vehicle back there, particularly at night if you wanted to go have a bonfire out there. Where nowadays you go out there and it's paved, it's a huge parking lot and it's packed. You can't even find a place to park. But yeah, it's certainly social media has had a huge impact on Michigan and on places to visit in Michigan.
Now, if you're a business owner, especially in a smaller community like that, I remember there was an amazing, amazing sandwich shop inside Empire itself. I think it's called Shipwreck, maybe?
Okay.
Have you ever been to it?
I haven't been, no.
Yeah, and so I can imagine, I'm almost wondering what that pot or what that scale might be, because at one point, you're seeing like a lot of people really coming in. You're seeing this beautiful restaurant continue to go boom like that.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder how it would be trying to go manage like a seasonal, or maybe there's enough demand all going throughout the year that it's, be pretty easy to go manage. I have no idea. I've never worked in a restaurant like environment before.
What about the Shanty in Fishtown?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the shanty, is it called the shanty or the cheese shanty?
I think cheese shanty.
I think it is cheese shanty.
Maybe.
But first of all, what an amazing place. I mean, you talk again about social media's impact. That was a place you used to visit. Very few visitors to Fishtown. Absolutely gorgeous, though, right? And when folks see it, I think on social media,
beautiful.
they think, "Wow, I want to go visit that location." But nowadays, we go to that area again. We've talked about quite frequently. One of the places we always visit is Fishtown, and we always go to Vans Beach right there because there's oftentimes nice waves, and you can do the kids like to do some boogie boarding. I'll even enjoy some boogie boarding from time to time. But yeah, we call an hour or two in advance to order our food from the cheese shanty because it just takes that long to wait.
I think at one point now, I will say this was July 5th or 6th. Peak season, peak times, I think there is a 2.5 hour wait. Which is nothing against a cheese shanty because they're more than happy to go try and accommodate, but it's just a surge in popularity.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, for them, what does that look like, that change over like a 10, 15, 20-year period? They were probably a relatively sleepy
it used to be such a sleepy, nice little town. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a beautiful town as is, but just a surge in popularity where I can't imagine just trying to be a local resident and trying to think about just trying to buy a house there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're probably driven to, more in the countryside or maybe further out because I've heard stories to where a lot of local businesses are actually now investing and they're buying homes. They're buying, I think there's a brewery. I don't want to go say the brewery name. I don't want to be wrong.
I've heard this,
There's a brewery out
in Bel Air.
Around the Bel area, and they purchased an old motel to go help out with employee housing.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Here you are, you're doing a really good job being a brewer, making award-winning beer, but then your employees can't find housing.
Right.
And so rightfully for them, they took a good step to go buy that employee housing, but how do you even think about trying to manage that?
It's a huge problem in Northwest Michigan. I mean, I hear stories about in Traverse City in particular where, it's a big service-oriented town. There's a lot of restaurants, and unfortunately, a lot of those jobs just don't pay extremely well, right? So folks are commuting in from Kalkaska and from Cadillac
45 minutes,
away. And I've been told that there's that they're busing people into town. Yeah.
Wow.
For that reason.
Before we get off topic, I'm sure the listeners would love to go here. Do you have 2 or 3 favorite ice cream places they like to go visit to in Traverse City?
Yeah. So 2 that I'll name. 1, Culver's.
Absolutely.
Right? We both love Culver's. And we know you can get it in more places than just Traverse City, but we have good friends that are involved with Culver's, love their food, probably love their food even more than their ice cream, but really enjoy their ice cream. And then, of course, you have Moomers.
Okay.
Right? You got to go to Moomers.
No surprise there. Mid-money favorite.
Wasn't that, like a Good Morning America or one of the best ice cream
absolutely.
or something?
Well, they're on Mid-money last June.
Oh, okay.
We had that ice cream episode.
Right.
Yeah. And so I was gonna hope you might say like an under the radar one that I might not know about, but it's very tough for my family if we're gonna go get ice cream and it's up north. We're either getting Moomers or going to Culver's.
Yeah. Well, Moomers, I mean, it's
between.
so amazing. I mean, you stand, you get your ice cream, and then you go sit on a picnic table and you look out at a dairy farm, right? At the cows that.
Well, I think that environment just brings in so many people. I mean, I think that's half the reason why people want to go there. That reminds me, what is that beer garden up in Suttons Bay?
Oh, you know what? Yeah. I haven't been there. I've heard amazing things about that, and I'm definitely going to get there this summer for sure.
But that environment can go make the difference for a lot of places too. I mean, just imagine those as an average atypical restaurant that didn't have that.
Yep, absolutely.
Or you're in Glen Arbor, you go to Boondocks,
and
they didn't have their signature deck,
right? Or what's the restaurant right across the street? There's a sandwich restaurant right across from Boondocks.
Oh gosh.
It's fantastic.
Oh, you had me for, I can think of Arts.
Yeah,
right
Arts,
down.
Arts Tavern.
Yeah. Love that place.
Yeah.
Love the sidewalk seating. Yeah. I could live up there forever in Cherry Republic.
Yep.
Another old Mid-money guest. So
that's right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about real estate, right? Because when you talk about Northwest Michigan, and real estate's just a great topic across the board today because prices just they're at all-time highs right now. And a lot of people are questioning, where do we go from here, right? Will prices continue to rise? Is there going to be a bit of a pullback? What are you reading, and what's your opinion on this?
And so post the great financial crisis, 2008 and 2009, you actually had a lot of construction workers either be retrained into different areas in the workforce,
Sure,
or they pivoted towards building new kinds of houses in a more higher up demographic. And so I mentioned this, is post 2008, 2009, you really saw an underdevelopment of houses and really a lack of inventory being out there and produced within the market as well. Now, I know this is a little bit different in Northern Michigan, but it feeds into the problem a little bit further, is that there's a huge shortage of housing just in general.
absolutely,
All across the board, because imagine homes get old, and sometimes people, might be better worth if a home was built 100 years ago, maybe tear it down, build a new home, but that old home that may have been worth $100,000 or $150,000 is then being replaced with a home that might be $500,000 or $600,000. And what you're also seeing, multiplying this even further, is there's a lack of talent.
Oh, sure.
A lack of talent, lack of firms.
Huge.
I mean, when I got my basement renovated, I called 12 places.
Yeah.
6 returned my call back. 3 of them came out and actually toured the basement, or toured my basement, was willing to go give me a quote, but only 1 gave me a finished quote.
Yeah. Yep.
And so with the lack of skilled workers, I mean, it's tough to go get more and more construction up there. And so you go think about the general state of the real estate market, going back to your original question. Unfortunately for a lot of people out there, unless we can mass produce homes, but maybe have a little bit of a different stigma, because there is mobile housing that's out there right now, but the stigma that's out there in mobile housing, unfortunately, is not a good one.
Sure. The quality's not there. Maybe the community isn't quite there.
Yeah. And so until we can have more mass produced housing, there is going to continue to be a shortage as we move more into the future too. And COVID really exacerbated that as well, because there were a lot of people buying second and third homes. So think Northern Michigan too. And so instead of one person maybe only having, 1 home, they're like, you know what? Finances are going pretty good. I can go lock in a low mortgage rate. Why not go buy that second house up north? Well, okay, that's existing inventory out of that little community that is no longer there.
Sure. Yep. And so I think something that we're seeing a lot of, that I know I'm seeing a lot of personally, is because of where interest rates are, right? Because of where the costs of homes are, we're seeing a lot of people really focus on where they are, like staying at home.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And doing more home renovation, right? And something that I thought was really interesting is Home Depot. And so they recently, I don't know if you saw this, but $18 billion, they purchased a company, SRS, which at least in Michigan and Indiana is known as Wimsot, which sells building materials.
Sure, yeah.
So it makes you think, was this a really smart decision on their behalf, right? To really buy into the building materials market at a much greater level.
It makes a lot of sense. And so imagine if you only have a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house. Or in our case, our house is 3 bedrooms prior to the renovation. Now we added a 4th bedroom downstairs. And so we were never considering to go sell our house to go move to another house that might be bigger. But with renovating our basement, that's 1,000 extra square feet. That's another bedroom that's downstairs. And so for a lot of people, I think they're going to go make the decision and go DIY.
Yeah, I absolutely agree because the cost, well, to your point, first of all, there's a huge shortage of folks that are in the trades.
Absolutely.
Right. So finding someone to build a home. I know in our local market, there's very little activity happening in terms of new construction. And then even then, when you're looking to just improve the house that you're in, finding someone to come and do the work.
It can be pricey.
Oh, and the costs are, I mean, we have a small bar area in our dining room that all we wanted was a relatively small countertop, say, yay big, about, let's call it 3 by 3 feet, right? We just wanted that countertop replaced and some tiling done on the wall behind it. Pretty small job, right?
Yeah.
$7,000 was the quote that we received. So we decided to not move forward with that project, right? But I know I've mentioned before, like the 30-year interest rate that I have on my home that's in the low 2%, right? That's makes the decision even more difficult to move, right?
Yeah.
Because it's such a great interest rate. And I know I've talked about it before, but would I even sell or might I rent? So...
when you go take a look back at interest rates, I saw a crazy chart that came out before interest rates started to rise, that when a lot of people were refinancing their mortgages, refinancing their debt, corporate debt in general, those interest rates were at 5,000-year lows.
Wow.
5,000 years.
So how do they even gather that information?
Okay. So I do want to go have a sit down with the author and how they were to go gather it, but it was from a
Alexander had a great rate, is what you're telling me. Way back
it was from it was from a verifiable source, and so I do believe they did do their homework, because it was a widely shared chart, because it really showed what short-term and long-term borrowing costs were going all the way back to 3000 BC. Now, I can imagine your different locales are going to have different rates, of course, but it really shows, how cheap debt was.
Yeah.
And so it's a really tough decision, because quite honestly, I can't foresee a situation where I would ever want to move out of my house.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're very fortunate to go be in that situation.
Yeah.
Because now we refinished the basement. We have 4 bedrooms. It's about 2,000 square feet. I really can't foresee a reason that we'd want to go sell or go move.
Yeah. And so put yourself in the shoes of, maybe one of the younger folks in our office.
Yeah, sure.
Right? They're, 22 to 28 years old. They're making their first home, want to make their first home purchase, right? Supply is so low, demand is so high, which drives up prices. And then at the same time as prices are so high, interest rates are maybe not historically high, but they're high considering where they've been over the past, 20 years or so. How are these folks going to find affordable homes for purchase?
So I was talking with a good friend, a couple years younger. Now, he doesn't live in Michigan, lives in another part of the U.S. I guarantee if he's listening, you know who you are out there. But if you want results, and this applies to anywhere in business or life, but if you want results that are outside the box, you have to do things that are outside the box a little bit more. And so go talk to different friends, go talk to family members that you're actively looking out and trying to go search for a home, because maybe they might know. I mean, think about it from this perspective. And so they might know someone who their kids are out of the house, they're looking to go downsize, and they want to go sell to someone they know, or maybe a younger family. And so maybe that house doesn't effectively go on the market.
Right.
Or another really good strategy too, this requires a more legwork, but maybe go try and partner up with a set of contractors who are looking to go flip a house or renovate a house.
Yeah.
Because of that perspective, think about it. If you're trying to go flip a house, you were investing money in that house, maybe borrowing money, and that's a variable cost that's associated with your overall return. If they know that they already have a buyer lined up at the end of that, that makes their decisions a whole heck of a lot better. And then your house can also be personalized towards that as well.
Right.
And so just being able to go think a little bit outside the box, I think can help lead to better solutions, because quite honestly, if it goes on Zillow, I mean, it's just fun to go on Zillow.
Right.
It's just fun to go on Zillow in general. And so,
you're a big Zillow guy. I'm
Zillow.
a big Realtor guy.
Oh, really?
The Realtor app.
Okay. Yeah.
So
what draws you to Realtor?
Well, I love that, you can draw a circle, and maybe Zillow has updated. I particularly use Zillow when I'm working with a client for like financial planning purposes, and they don't necessarily know exactly what their home is valued at.
Sure.
So I go to Zillow to get a Zestimate, so I can get a range of where folks' homes are priced or where their value is, right? When I'm looking to actually do some creeping and look at real estate in a particular area, which, by the way, everywhere I visit, I'm always interested in the real estate, right?
Absolutely.
When you're walking down Main Street and you see, the 25 posters in the window, and you stop and say, "Oh, look, honey, we could own a place on the water here for $2.5 million." Just sort of jokingly, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that you can sort of draw a circle around a very specific area with Realtor. And so you can really, you mentioned Empire. I absolutely love Empire, and there are particular neighborhoods that I really like it within Empire. So I can draw a circle around that neighborhood and say what's for sale specifically right there. And that's what I like about Realtor.
I could see that. Yeah. I don't think Zillow, maybe they do have that feature.
Yeah.
And I haven't utilized it yet. But one thing, going back to thinking outside the box a little bit more, another really good resource, Craigslist.
Really?
I know it is antiquated, especially with Facebook Marketplace.
Talk about creepy. I think I mentioned used that word earlier. But when I think of Craigslist, I think of
it gets a negative connotation. So think about it. Most people won't go on Craigslist.
Right.
And so there is a whole housing page. You can go look at houses for rent, subletting, temporary housing, so on and so forth. But they have for sale listings. Now, there might not be a lot of listings.
Right.
Listings may be very infrequent, but someone may want to go list it through there, maybe through other traditional listing services, or maybe they're trying to sell it for themselves. And I've never sold a house via myself, but I can imagine that if you want to go list it on Zillow or Realtor or one of these other listing websites, maybe it costs more money. And so maybe Craigslist is another good option too.
And to that point, actually, I just read an article yesterday. I don't know if you saw that the National Association of Realtors or National Realtors Association. And the lawsuit that they had and how that's really going to change the real estate experience. And I was reading that as many as 80% of existing realtors will be exiting the business within the next 12 to 24 months. But really how that experience is going to change, because as I understand it now, the buyer's agent will no longer be cut in on the commission from the sale of a home, or the seller will no longer have to pay the buyer's agent. So I don't know if you've read about this. It seems like you have. But how is that going to change that experience, right? That buying experience.
It's definitely going to change it a little bit. I think that realtors will be a little bit, what's the right way of saying it? Intuitive with what that new fee service might be. And so I can see some people moving towards more of a per dollar per hour like service too, rather than a percentage for their overall home too. But it's unfortunate with realtors. Now, I have never been a realtor myself. This is all from reading external articles, but a lot of the average wage that a realtor might make is very different from what you might actually expect, because unfortunately, a lot of the high performers are going to earn a lot more that commission check that they might offer from selling, 10, 20, 30, 40 homes per year. And so it's going to be more naturally a little bit more skewed up, but towards what that buying service might be, I think it's going to give people, maybe a little more of a level playing field. I know that one lawsuit has gone through, maybe more, but I know that many more are also currently going through as well. Now, I'm still for certain that there will be a realtor. There's gonna be realtors out there no matter what. I remember when I was going through my first home buying purchase, I received a lot of really, really good piece of information from the realtor that I used. He was very knowledgeable about local market, very knowledgeable about builders for some new homes that we were also taking a look at that time too. And so they will still have a purpose, but it's just gonna be a different way of looking at it.
No, and to your point, and to that comment, I'm not disparaging realtors
not
at any
not at all.
But because I have a lot of friends that are realtors, and I got a lot of value from the realtors that we've used in the past, both on the selling and the buying side. It's just going to be, to your point, they're going to have to pivot.
It's just going to be a little bit different, but I think that's naturally over time. That's what's going to happen with a lot of different industries too. I mean, just think about a realtor's job pre-Zillow and pre-realtor versus post-Zillow. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things, maybe that could be a good guest. If you're a realtor listening, please reach out to us, because
I think it'd be terrific to get
because maybe there could be things about Zillow and realtor that maybe we don't know, or maybe there's some hidden things that, they could offer some unique insights on as well.
Absolutely.
All right, Kevin. So naturally, we utilize the last little bit of our podcast, talk about what we have been watching over this past week, but we received a listener email and they are wondering, Kevin, what watches do you wear? They've noticed some of the wristwear that you've had be able to go show us. And so enlighten the audience.
So today I'm wearing a Shinola. So love Shinola, love their story. I've toured their, it's not a manufacturing facility.
That's down in Detroit, isn't it?
It's down in Detroit. But it's where it's an assembly facility is what I'm going to call it, because not everything is manufactured in the United States. So that's why they can't technically say that it was made in the USA, but it wasn't. They are assembled in the United States. And it's just such a cool story. And after, I would recommend to anyone that if you can, try to set up a tour to go down there and tour that assembling plant, and just the leathers that they use. And just, they're a big part of, I think, of the comeback story when you think about Detroit, right? When I walked through that facility,
they're
and
nationally known.
All the different people working on the leather goods and on the watchmaking and all those different things. So they're a Michigan-based company, which you got to love that if you're a Michigander, which Mint Money,
Mint
right?
Money, exactly.
Exactly.
Right?
So, in fact, we should probably try to get maybe the owner of Shinola on the show.
If you're listening out there, please reach out to us.
So how about yourself?
So I am rocking a Timex right now. Beautiful, beautiful watch. I have had bad luck with watches in the past. Now, it is nothing against the watch brands. Maybe I'm just a clumsy person. I think my wife can attest to that. And so some watches have accidentally been dropped in the past. I've had some bad luck. And so I've got myself back now. Timex is a great brand,
Yeah.
but it's a nice, entry level watch. I think this watch is only $40, $45 off Amazon, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
And for myself, let me ask you this: do you prefer metal band wrists or leather?
I have both, but I prefer leather. Big fan of
leather too, because
bands.
I found over time it rips some of my wrist hair out a little bit.
Okay.
And it just make it a little uncomfortable too. And then in the summer, that's where it gets worse. If like your arms or your hand swells up.
Sure. Yeah. One other thing I want to mention about Shinola really quickly, I think often about like great service experiences. One of the best service experiences I've ever had in my life was Shinola. So I bought my wife a watch. I don't recall if it was for her birthday or anniversary or whatnot. So she accidentally, while she's getting into her car, don't ask me how this happens, drops the watch on the ground and maybe didn't realize that she had dropped it and then drove over the watch, basically shattering the face of the watch. And so she comes to me like later that day, look what happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, we mailed it into Shinola. And about 3 weeks later, we get the watch back in the mail, totally repaired, no cost. They added one of their leather-bound journals in it, which go for $30 to $40 within it. And then there was a handwritten note in the envelope that said, we're sorry that this took so long to get back to you. If that is not an amazing service, that's maybe the best service I've ever received in my life. It was amazing.
Well, and think about it from your perspective too. You're a customer for life now.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's why I'm here raving about them today. So Shinola, hey, we're looking for sponsors. If you're available, we'd love to have you.
Absolutely. No, that's an incredible story. And with that, I think that is a good time for us to wrap up. Thank you everyone again for listening to another great episode of Mint Money.